Hi, I'm Leon Lovelace, and this is Unstoppable Force. I got a news story for you, and it's from the Atlantic. It's about how the Olympics need to be reformed. Can I first listen to this off of NPR? I don't really like NPR all that much because they're really defenders of the establishment. A lot of the establishment viewpoints is what they're how they report the news. They don't really challenge the government and the way things are I would like them to. So I try not to really just heavily rely upon them for my news coverage when I like to consume. But sometimes they'll go to long form discussions about some topics and some issues where they actually do have somewhat of a actual liberal or more progressive leaning on what the government should do or what the people should start looking towards and what we should start working towards and voting for. And one thing they did talk about, and this could have been like a week or two ago, but I just remembered that this was something good for me to talk about, is that the Olympics really needs to make some big reforms. Okay, and then of course the Summer Olympics that just happened in Rio last year. It was really exciting games, a lot of good competition. Um, there's a little bit of controversy with the Ryan Lochte and the Olympic swimmers doing some BS. I forgot. I think they were partying too much or something and like damaged some stuff. I don't remember quite, but like they lied about it, so that was weird and kind of screwed up. But the really important stuff about the Olympics is that the Brazilian government and the private investors spent somewhere between $12 billion and $20 billion to host the Olympics. But of course, since Brazil's been having a lot of economic problems, they have way too much violence right now. They have too much government corruption. So the government's not trying to provide for the poor and the working class there. So that just, snowballs into more economic and social problems that's going on for the people there. Then also, and that spills over just farther than just Brazil, because I just watched a news story or read a news story about how a couple of tourists got killed or one tourist got shot over there. I don't know if I'll do a story on that. And another tourist from a different nation, and that person got killed. Yeah, but let's carry on. Or let's get back on topic. Because even though they spent all those billions of dollars to build all the structures and the complexes to host the games, this article in the Atlantic talks about how they might have only gained $4 or $5 billion of revenue. So of course they lost a ton of money hosting the games. And on top of that, Brazil wasn't able to win as many gold medals as they hoped, and they also didn't win as many gold medals as host nations usually do, because they'll normally earn a few more golds, so they'll usually get that uptick from having the home, because they'll have that home field advantage and just having the home crowd behind you. I think that helps. Plus with the travel, you don't have to travel several thousand miles. So like with football and basketball, home team usually wins a little more. So, but a lot of what happens with cities that host Olympic Games is that, along with Rio, that the bankrupt Rio government, they couldn't pay for security and other basic services. Olympic funds largely gone towards construction of stadiums, housing and subway lines that benefited the rich more than the poor. But there were some exceptions, because the '84 Olympics in Los Angeles and the '92 Olympics in Barcelona were able to make money for those cities. But most of the time, those lose money for the cities. In recent years, many Olympic host cities have had to reckon with corruption, ballooning costs, underinvestment in public services in the run-up to the games, projects that don't help and sometimes harm much of the population. Once the festivities end, cities are frequently left with a load of debt and a bunch of useless megastructures. It's no wonder then that, according to one recent poll, 63% of Brazilians believe hosting the Olympics will hurt their country. Alright, but Bate and Matheson proposed several solutions to today's predicament, including a pretty profound change. Why not designate a permanent home for the Olympic Games? Bate and Matheson's proposal is newly popular, but it's not new. In fact, it's as old as the Olympics. The ancient Greeks held the Olympic Games in Olympia and only Olympia for centuries. Alright, let's go a little bit into the history of how they didn't stay in one city, because in the late 19th century, the French intellectual Pierre de Coubertin revived the Olympics, which had lapsed in the 4th century. The Roman emperor banned Theodosius banned pagan cults. Initially, things didn't go to plan, as the first modern games wound down in Athens in 1896. King George of Greece gave a speech in which he called for permanently stationing the event in his country. But it didn't end up like that, because Coubertin said, you know what, the second one's going to be in Paris. So it ended up not being like that. Oh, and then in 1980, during the Cold War, the United States planned a boycott of the Moscow Summer Olympics of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. So the Olympic historian John Lucas proposed establishing a fixed Olympic Games center for the summer contest, United Nations of sport, housing a neutral country like Switzerland or Finland, and a limited rotation of locations for the smaller winter event. But that never happened. So now there's a few different ideas that the IOC could propose and implement to make sure that it's not costing way too much for the cities or the citizens of those cities and the nation at whole. Because John Rennie Short suggests establishing a Summer Olympic city and a year-round convention and training center on a sparsely inhabited Greek island. Greece could ease its debt crisis by selling land, which I think that's a stupid thing to do. While the IOC could cover upfront construction and operating costs with bonds or loans based on future media revenues. Others think permanent hosts could be Los Angeles, which turned a profit on the 84 games in part by using existing facilities, or some Swiss city with the climate and geography to host both the Winter and Summer Olympics. I'm not a big fan of that one. Because one cool thing about the Olympics is at least a different nation would be able to host the Winter Olympics versus the Summer Olympics. Because then you get a little more cultural diversity when you're not just having the Summer and the Winter Olympics in one city. One idea is that, or the author Roger Howard, he has an idea if the IOC grants a long-term hosting rights to one city, that city sells the rights for another nation to host different games. Because it says, because the city would rent out the Olympics infrastructure, and then a different nation like Kenya would organize the opening and the closing ceremonies wherever the Olympics is hosted at. And then some propose rotating the Olympics among several cities that recently hosted the Olympics, perhaps choosing 5 to represent the 5 interlocking rings of the Olympic symbol, or cycling them through one permanent venue on each continent. And then another person, Paul Christesen, has floated another plan that to have a decentralized Olympic Games where different cities simultaneously host different athletic events. It says athletes could be flown to opening and closing ceremonies in Olympic Mecca, like Lausanne, Switzerland, or Olympia, Greece. So the approach could expand the universe of potential Olympic hosts. cities could bid to host sports that are locally popular. But just one city just hosting the Olympics is a tall task, because it's one of the world's most elaborate and complex events. So they have to build all these structures, and they're asked to only do it once. So that's why it's just a complete and utter disaster and a mistake to keep on doing it how we are right now. I personally prefer that the IOC says, you know what, we're going to have 3 to 5 different cities host the Olympics, and we'll just do it in a cycle where it's a regular it's just a regular cycle where it just goes through each city in a just regular pattern. And just have one group of cities doing the Summer Olympics and another set of cities that does it for the Winter Olympics. So the facilities get reused, so nations, but especially cities, aren't having to waste a whole bunch of money just to build all these infrastructures just for one big event, and that's it. But if the IOC doesn't want to do it like that, my second favorite option would be just to have one facility in each continent, so you can have a whole bunch of different cultural diversity and have different nations put their own. The different nations that are on the host continent can have their own opening and closing ceremonies, so we can get that cultural diversity that we might not be able to get if it's just hosted for a few cities. Alright, so thanks for watching, and if you like my show, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and also give me a donation to my GoFundMe account, because I need your help to make sure I can keep making my news show, and so I can expand and make even more news videos, because I'd like to do this full time, but I can't do it right now. So I need your help. So go check out the link at GoFundMe.